Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. I'll be right with you guys. Alrighty, I think the mic is working. So if it is, you guys can hear me. Welcome into the stream. Happy Easter to every single one of you guys out there. And we have a live stream going on right now for the potential of a severe weather outbreak tomorrow, and then another threat as we go into Tuesday. We do have an enhanced risk tomorrow from Oklahoma all the way through Indiana, and then another severe weather risk, an enhanced risk as we go into Tuesday, and that includes parts of Kentucky into southern Indiana and southern Ohio as well. So we're watching 2 days of severe weather, and the one we're really going to focus on is going to be tomorrow because we have the latest data, the more up-to-date data, more higher resolution. So we're going to be looking at tomorrow and then also taking an advanced look there for Tuesday to just give you guys the details. So let's let everybody come in here. Hey Alina, how are you? Happy Easter, everybody. But let's get into the, well, actually, let me get the live cam going on. I don't know why it keeps going off, but so right above me, we do have the enhanced risk for tomorrow, and then we do have Springfield, Missouri, which is a city included in that enhanced risk. So if we look at the enhanced risk we have for tomorrow, St. Louis all the way down through Springfield, Missouri, through Tulsa, along that I-44 corridor, all the way through Oklahoma City, we do have an enhanced risk. 3 out of 5 risk, which is an elevated risk that you want to take seriously for sure as we go into tomorrow. Now, we don't just want to talk about the enhanced risk, we also want to talk about the risk outside of that, because we're still likely going to see severe weather outside of that enhanced risk. So we'd have a slight risk from Cincinnati, Ohio, all the way to DFW Metroplex there in northern Texas. So a large slight risk, and even bigger marginal risk outside of that from San Antonio, Texas, all the way through Richmond, Virginia. So this is a very large severe weather risk, and let's just get straight into the details of looking at the threats, and then we're going to look a little bit more deeper into the forecast. So tomorrow we do have a 5% tornado threat. Now earlier in the day it was a 10% elevated tornado threat, so thankfully that has gone down, but that doesn't mean we should let our guard down, because that could still go back. We could still see that go back into place, so we're going to have to watch that tornado threat very closely. overall, not a ton of wind shear. This isn't an incredibly favorable wind shear environment like we would see for, say, a tornado outbreak or anything like that, but we still do have some wind shear, so that's why we're going to have to be watching for that tornado threat. And again, cities in this include St. Louis over towards Louisville, Kentucky, and down into Tulsa, Oklahoma, Fayetteville, Bentonville, Arkansas area there. So a large portion of this will be into the Ozarks from St. Louis into northern Arkansas, over towards Tulsa there as well, and then into the Ohio Valley. We're really watching that southern plains area into northern Texas and into parts of eastern Oklahoma, that Ozarks area as well, but then into the Ohio Valley. Those are the three areas that we're really watching for this severe weather threat tomorrow. And if you're just tuning into the stream, again, we are forecasting a severe weather threat for tomorrow, possible severe weather outbreak. So that's why I came on here. I wanted to get the details out to you guys. Now, our largest threat tomorrow is for sure going to be that hail threat. We have a 30% elevated hail threat, and that includes Oklahoma City. Barely includes Oklahoma City, but we're obviously still going to have that a large hail threat. Really, if you're on the line of is it red, if it's yellow, it doesn't really matter. You're still going to have the same threat a couple miles if they're in, the red. If you're outside the red and you think, oh, we're good, you aren't. You are the same as the people in the red is what I'm really trying to say there. So again, if you're just a couple miles out, you have the same risk. And then into Tulsa, over up towards Springfield, Missouri. So southwestern Missouri into northeastern Oklahoma. That's where we're going to have our largest hail threat, as we have those supercellular storms popping off tomorrow afternoon, really into tomorrow evening and into the overnight hours, and those are going to carry a large threat. Large hail to very large hail, and that's from the Storm Prediction Center. So we're going to have that large threat of hail in there, and also again we have that 5% tornado risk, so we can't rule out tornadoes with those large supercellular storms as well. So we're gonna have to watch that. Again, if you have anything outside, if you have anything, if your cars are outside, please put them in your carport, your garage, even a parking garage if you can. Please do that, because these storms are going to have very large hail in them. And again, we still do have that 15% from DFW Metroplex in northern Texas all the way over towards St. Louis and even into Cincinnati, Ohio. So again, in that area we can still expect hail, but really there into southwestern Missouri, northeastern Oklahoma there, that's where we're going to be having our largest hail threat. Now, our last threat we're looking at here is the wind threat, and that wind threat is pretty elevated as well. We do have a 30% damaging wind threat, and I think that's going to be something you really to watch out for, especially as these storms congeal, which is what is expected from looking at the data. We're likely going to see some of these storms congeal into clusters of storms, these supercells. When they initiate, they will likely be isolated, but then as they congeal into clusters, that damaging wind threat will go up as we see those downbursts with that strong straight line damaging wind threat as well. So we're going to have to watch that from St. Louis over towards Tulsa into Springfield as well. The I-44 corridor again is under the gun for this severe weather threat this time around. I think, 2 weeks ago, or maybe even more than 2 weeks ago. Time really flies, but we did have that severe weather threat down the I-44 corridor, and we did get a ton of hail, big time hail, and this looks like an event where we could get some hail, but not as elevated, thankfully. Still gonna have to watch that damaging wind threat in St. Louis and that small tornado threat. But even if it's a small threat, we still have to take it very seriously, because a 5% threat still means we get a few tornadoes, and again, that could go over in a populated area, and we really do not want that. So that's why I'm trying to get this information out to you guys. Now let's go into the forecast, go a little bit more in depth for you guys. So first we're going to look at the dew points that are going to be in place as we go into tomorrow at 4 p.m. This is the HRRR model, the model that I'm mainly going to be looking at. This is the high resolution rapid refresh model, and as you can see, the dew points, we are not going to have a problem when it comes to the dew points. They are pretty high here as we get into the 60s, down into Texarkana area, we're getting up into the 70s, but yes, this is very sufficient, very good for storms from St. Louis all the way down through Oklahoma City, Tulsa here, as you can see in those blues, and even into those greens, those darker greens. That is still sufficient for storms as well. So it's going to feel very moist. You're going to be able to smell that the storms are coming if you're through Missouri into Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Illinois there as well. And we're going to be looking at two regions, the Central United States region and then the Ohio Valley region, because again, this is a pretty large enhanced risk, slight risk there as well. And again, we're going to be seeing that up through the Ohio Valley, north of the Ohio River, into southern Indiana here, as well as into southern, creeping into central Illinois, southern Ohio, a large portion of Kentucky there as well. So we are going to have that moisture in place for these areas. Again, this is tomorrow at 4 p.m. there in the afternoon. Now, let's look at that instability here. We have surface-based CAPE, convective available potential energy, and you can see we're going to have a good amount of instability, especially down here in Oklahoma, to the east of Oklahoma City, through Tulsa, up through Springfield, and that's going to be making its way into St. Louis as well. So we're going to have fuel for these storms that, of course, they need. So these storms are going to be able to pop off, and this is definitely a very good amount of fuel for these storms that they're going to need to initiate and to get stronger and to really fuel themselves as they go along. And we're likely going to see a storm track tomorrow to northeast to the east is where we're going to see that. And then as we look into the Ohio Valley area, we do have that convective available potential energy, that instability. Again, that's into the Ohio Valley. We're going to be seeing that a little bit later into the evening. A little bit later into the evening is when we're going to be seeing that. Hey, Mr. Storm. Yeah, as people come in here, again, we are forecasting a severe weather threat for tomorrow. And then taking a bit of a look into Tuesday, as we do have two enhanced risk days, one for the southern plains all the way through the Ohio Valley, and then one for a little bit more of a localized regional area into parts of Appalachia. So we're watching two areas, and right now we're forecasting that area for tomorrow, if you just tuned in. And we're looking at instability, and this is measured by joules per kilogram. 2,000 is definitely enough. I mean, even 1,000, that's enough for these storms to really pop off here. And I think we're really going to see that is over into parts of Missouri there, into western Missouri, eastern Kansas, central and eastern Oklahoma. And I think that's where we're going to be seeing, of course, our biggest hail threat, highlighted by the Storm Prediction Center, but also that tornado threat. I think that's where we'll probably see a pretty elevated tornado threat, but also here into the Ohio Valley as we go later into the night, we're going to see, again, that instability kind of creep down a little as we go into the night, but that's where we're going to see storms kind of congeal. So we're going to have to watch these two areas again earlier in the afternoon. That's when we're really going to see that instability into southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and I think that's when we're going to have another chance earlier before the main set of storms to get an earlier set of storms that could, have a tornado threat, hail threat as well on that. So we're going to have to watch that as well. And then lastly, let's look at our wind shear that we're looking at right here. And this is the low-level jet. We're looking at the low-level jet wind shear as we go up into the atmosphere, the change in the direction of wind. So as we look at 850 millibars right here, you can see we do have a low-level jet, especially over into Oklahoma and into Texas, but it's a fairly weak one. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, we are not going to have a ton of wind shear with this event. We're not going to have really a lot of that in place, but you don't need a ton to get a tornado. You just need enough there to get a tornado to touch down, and that's the main thing we're focusing on. It does creep up though as we go into the evening, as we see with low-level jets, so creeping into the Ozarks of Missouri, into the Ozarks there of Arkansas, and into parts of Oklahoma and Texas. That's where we're going to be seeing our low-level jet coming generally from the southeast there, or southwest there, I apologize. And then as we look at as we go higher into the atmosphere at 500 millibars, that's coming from the southwest. So overall, we're not having a lot of wind shear because that low-level jet is coming from the southwest, and as we go up into the atmosphere, that the winds are also coming from the southwest. So when we have them coming generally from the similar directions, we don't see too much wind shear, which is why this is more of a hail-driven event than a tornado-driven event. Of course, with some events you can have both of those, but with this event it is more of a hail-driven event than a tornado-driven event. But tornadoes are for sure not ruled out with this situation. Now let's look at what the radar could look like as we go here into the future. And like I was talking about there, we could have that as we go into the early afternoon into the mid-afternoon, that earlier set of storms coming through Illinois and into parts of eastern Missouri. So let's look at that here as we go into around 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. We do get a storm coming over St. Louis. Again, this is just one model run of one model, so this is just one take here from a model. And again, this can change. This is what the radar could look like as we go into tomorrow. And you can see we could have a storm or two here into parts of eastern Missouri, western Illinois, and that would carry a hail threat as well as possibly a tornado threat. So as you can see, a pretty strong cell there with lots of hail on it going into Illinois, and we're going to have to watch again this earlier round of storms, possible tornado threat with these couple of storms as we go into tomorrow early afternoon into the mid-afternoon. So early afternoon to the mid-afternoon. By the way, you just saw that storm going over St. Louis. If you didn't know, I live in St. Louis, so I will have updates tomorrow throughout the day on Twitter, and I'll probably post them here on YouTube as well. But make sure you go follow me on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, there, because I will have updates tomorrow as the severe storms are likely going to go over my location. Of course, that's not confirmed because we are going to have a lot of cloud cover around with this event, so that's going to lessen the severe weather threat in St. Louis, but still we could have those severe storms. That's why I'm going to have updates from St. Louis. And if we continue to play this out going later into the day, and you can see by the time we get here into 7 p.m., these storms just start to explode, and I think this shows it a little bit better if we go here again towards 7 p.m. into the late afternoon, into the evening hours is when these storms are really going to explode. And you can see right here the storms start to explode. We have multiple supercells from Kansas City all the way down through Oklahoma City, down towards the Red River Valley there as well. So in this area, from what I've seen, is where we're going to see that supercell development as we go into Tuesday, or as we go into tomorrow, Monday evening, late Monday afternoon into Monday evening. That's likely where we're going to see that development of these supercellular storms that will carry a very large hail threat. Again, anything outside that's valuable, your cars, please protect that from these storms, because these storms are going to have very, very large hail. Most importantly, though, be inside, be away from windows, protect yourself during these storms as well. If you come under severe thunderstorm warning, especially those severe thunderstorm warnings that are going to likely have a lot of hail associated with them, you really do want to be indoors, away from windows, and protect yourself. But today, maybe if you're driving your car around, you want to make sure tonight that it is in a good location, or maybe tomorrow morning, so it won't be affected by that hail, because this is going to be large to very large hail. This is going to be damaging hail, and a lot of these storms, as you can see, these big time storms, supercellular storms, through parts of eastern Kansas there into parts of Missouri and into parts of central Oklahoma, and there into parts of eastern Oklahoma there as well. And then as we continue to play this out going into Tuesday evening here, this is around 10 p.m. Central Time. So all these times I'm saying here are Central Time, which is again where this is at. All of these locations in this risk are in Central Time. So I believe we are now entering normal conditions. We may have a good May this year. I haven't really looked into the long term yet, but yeah, I'll look into that as well. But thank you guys for tuning in, as again, we are forecasting this severe weather threat tomorrow, possible severe weather outbreak with a large hail threat, a tornado threat that we will have to monitor, and then a pretty significant damaging wind threat there as well. But you can see these storms do congeal into clusters of storms. Here we got one right here. Again, this is around 10 p.m. tomorrow evening. One right here down into the Fayetteville area, this area to the west of St. Louis. And again, these storms are going to start out likely by themselves, not associated with other storms, and that's when we're going to have our very large hail threat, and also that possible tornado threat as well. The good thing here is that we do not have a ton of wind shear for these storms to really harness. We don't have a lot of wind shear for these storms to harness, so best case scenario, and what really could happen, is that these storms are mostly just big hailstorms, and we still want to be prepared for those. But thankfully, these storms are not likely to have, not every single storm is likely to have a very strong tornado threat, which is very good. But we still have to watch. A couple of these storms could get some rotation on them, and we could have to watch for that tornado threat. So again, we can't rule it out. By no means can we rule out that tornado threat. But again, as we go into the evening, those storms congeal, form into clusters, and move towards St. Louis here, into northern Arkansas, down through Mark Twain Forest there, south of St. Louis, and then it kind of peters out. And then as we look into the Ohio Valley region, again, we continue to see that those storms congeal into clusters of storms, and then they move to the east, and by the time we go into early Tuesday morning, it kind of peters out. We're not going to be seeing a lot of stuff there in the form of severe storms. But then as we go into Tuesday, we're going to have to watch for another severe weather threat as well. Again, as we go into Tuesday, a couple storms going up there into parts of eastern Kentucky. This is a very rural area, and this is into Appalachia, and so we're gonna have to watch the severe weather threat into Tuesday there as well. And I hope to have another update on that tomorrow, but I can't guarantee it. I'll try to go more in depth here in the next couple of minutes on that Tuesday threat. But I want to again go over this threat. Again, we see those supercells initiate, fire off as we go into tomorrow evening. So I'm saying 5 to 8 p.m. is really when we're going to see those storms fire off there into parts of central Missouri, into parts there of eastern Kansas, and into Oklahoma as well, and continue to play this out. They really explode, and we're gonna have to watch those storms coming into St. Louis area. Blaze weather, hey, what's going on? Again, coming into your area, my area, as we go into tomorrow evening, and we're gonna have to watch for a possibly damaging wind threat. And then of course we can't rule out a couple of embedded areas of circulation and some small to medium sized hail with those clusters of storms. So really our largest hail threat is going to be with these storms. Again, if I go back over here, that's the wrong area. If I go back over here, again, you can see these are going to be very, very strong hailstorms, and you want to be prepared for them. Again, from the Red River Valley north of Dallas, up towards Oklahoma City, over towards Tulsa, up towards Kansas City, over towards Columbia, and then even into St. Louis, going into late tomorrow, into the overnight hours, is when we're going to be having to watch out for those large hailstorms, then those clusters of storms, as again, they congeal there as we go into the overnight hours, and then that damaging wind threat. So large hail, possibly a couple tornadoes, we definitely cannot rule that out, and then that damaging wind threat as well. Now let's look at Tuesday, and just a quick look at Tuesday here, and you can see we do have that enhanced risk. This is a more localized enhanced risk into southern Indiana, southern Ohio, into parts of West Virginia there, and into parts of central and eastern Kentucky. So Louisville over towards Cincinnati, those are some areas that are included in that enhanced risk. So we're going to have to watch that closely. If we look at the probabilistic outlook there, again, we have that 30% probabilistic from the Storm Prediction Center, so it's going to be a day to watch as we go into Tuesday. Again, this is going to be for parts of Appalachia there, into West Virginia, into Kentucky, and also there into southern Ohio and into southern Indiana. So we're going to have to watch that day as well. But then if you're just tuning in, again, a quick overview. If clouds, hold on, let me check the chat real quick. If clouds don't come through in the morning here, we could get some good storms tomorrow for sure. For sure. If we do have that cloud cover, which it's looking like right now, that's going to hamper our severe storm threat as we go later in the day, because we're going to have less of that surface-based instability that's going to fuel those storms. So yeah, good point there, Blaze. We're going to have to watch that very closely. If we get that cloud layer in effect, then again our storm threat is going to be lower, not out of the question, but lower. And if we don't get that, it's going to be higher. So that's going to be something to watch, and that's going to be something I'm definitely going to be reporting on from St. Louis as we go into tomorrow morning and into the rest of the day tomorrow for your Mondays. I am off school for the last day unfortunately of Easter break. But again, we do have that enhanced risk tomorrow, enhanced risk from St. Louis over towards Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Springfield, up that I-44 corridor, large hail, damaging winds, and a few tornadoes cannot be ruled out. But damaging winds, very large hail. That's the main threats. You really, really want to be prepared for that. And then as we look later into this week, again, happy Easter if you're just coming on, but as we look later into this week, I will be going to Arkansas for the eclipse, and that's going to be something to watch in and of itself, with cloud cover, possibly some severe weather as well, as we go into early next week. So I will have more on that as we go later into this week. I actually am very busy this week, but I'll try and get a couple updates out. As always, you can watch me on the Real Monica Adams Show. I will likely be on tomorrow morning on Monday to outline that severe weather threat for St. Louis, and then talk more about the eclipse. We've been talking about the eclipse for a while now, but you can get the local St. Louis updates on the Real Monica Adams Show, and I just love being on that show. I'm so thankful for having me on again. You can watch the 7 a.m. Central Time there for your St. Louis forecast. And that about wraps up this live stream. Again, I hope it helped you guys get a better idea of what we're expecting tomorrow, again, from Oklahoma, southeastern Kansas, into a large chunk of Missouri, and into the Ohio Valley for, again, that severe weather threat. And then as we go into Tuesday, that threat into parts of Appalachia, southern Ohio, and southern Indiana. As always, stay prepared out there. Make sure you go follow me on X or Twitter, whatever we call it nowadays, to get those latest updates as we go into tomorrow. Stay prepared out there, and I will see you soon with